I don't often speak about political issues, but I feel inspired to say something about the Canadian medical system. I'm speaking of the situation here in Ontario and more specifically in Toronto. And I'm going to speak personally because I spent 5 nights in hospital last week. Um, Basically, what it was an obstructed bowel, which sounds like surgery. And I was very surprised to hear from the doctor that only about 10% of these issues require surgery, and the other 90% seem to get cured in the way that I did. I resisted going to emergency, but my family doctor insisted. And you hear all of these stories in the Canadian media about how the emergency departments are horribly backed up. You could spend 20 hours or 2 days waiting. Um, I can't say this is nonsense. All I can say is it certainly did not turn out that way for me. My doctor was on staff at the hospital Emerge I went to. He phoned ahead. Took me about 2 hours in the waiting area to get all signed in and checked out, and then finally seen by a nurse practitioner or a registered nurse. I'm not sure. They, I was in, I was having severe nausea. I was having a whole lot of pain in my gut. They put me on an IV drip, Gravol for the nausea. They gave me some hydrocodone, got rid of the pain. And this sounds horrible, but the practitioner put a tube up my nose, down my throat, into my gut. I didn't even gag. It wasn't painful. Neither was it painful when 5 days later they took it out. Anyway, they found a semi-private room for me upstairs in the hospital, and behind the bed there's a whole panel of technical things, and they hooked the tube up to something that sucks the contents of the stomach into a big jar, which they empty several times a day. And so I have that thing running there, and then I have the IV drip. If I'm to get out of bed, I have to I have to have the stomach thing disconnected briefly, and then I have to wheel the IV thing to the bathroom or wherever. I was feeling better very quickly. The nausea and the pain went away. I was able to sleep. Next day they wanted me up and walking. Apparently the problem is something like your garden hose gets a kink in it and the water can't flow. And being up and walking apparently can help shake out the kink in the hose and can get things working again. After about 4 days they gave me clear liquids, and I was okay with that. Then the next morning I got some cereal and a muffin, and then I had lunch, and at that point things looked okay and they were prepared to let me go home. So I was in a room with a very nice Indo-Canadian couple. He was in a lot of pain. His wife was there to help him. She spoke fluent English, and she was very kind to me, as was he. The nurses were wonderful. The doctor was wonderful. I walked out of there feeling very thankful to be a Canadian. None of this cost me 1 cent. When we're born, we get a card. It's our health card. We walk into a hospital, we walk into a doctor's office. Everything is covered. There is no copay. I suppose those 5 days in hospital might have cost me $100,000 if I were in the US or more, unless I had very good insurance. So I walked out of the hospital feeling blessed to be a Canadian, um, feeling proud of the healthcare system, very happy with the care that I received, very grateful for it. Um, I came home and was listening to CBC Radio, and they were playing the last of the Massey lectures for 2023, given by a woman who 15 years ago was active in the Occupy Wall Street movement. And the series of lectures has come out also as a book now, but you can hear it on the CBC website or download it from there. It's called The Age of Insecurity. And I guess the point she's making is the basic socialist point that we are interconnected. We are all highly dependent on one another. Neoliberal capitalism tries to give us this idea that we're all independent atoms, independent, not interdependent, self-sufficient. That's all a lie. That's all an illusion. We are radically dependent on one another. I was dependent on the taxi driver who took me to the emergency and the Uber driver who brought me home, and dependent on the healthcare system that created and runs the hospital and trains the physicians and nurses and looked after me. There are all of these lies about the Canadian medical system, promoted no doubt by the elite classes, especially in the US, who make the US one of the very few countries in the world that doesn't have socialized medicine to some degree or another. So there are lies about the Canadian medical system. It's working pretty well, at least for me here in Toronto, and I'm very thankful for it. I highly recommend that lecture series, the Massey Lectures, The Age of Insecurity. It gives us a vision of human interconnectedness, interdependency. Of course, this is not news to me. One of my early heroes when I broke away from Leninism and Trotskyism, and I found Prince Peter Kropotkin, whose key book is called Mutual Aid, and he describes how he travels into northern Siberia and Manchuria, where the winters are just long-lasting and severe, and he studies the animals that survived. The ones that survived were not competing, they were cooperating. Survival through cooperation rather than competition. Most of the recent primate studies and so on have emphasized the cooperativeness of the social animals. So we cooperated here and we created a socialized Medicare system. I pay for it through my taxes. The taxes are higher here in Canada than in the US. It's worth it. It's worth it to have the security that we have in this country. So I guess I wanted to say thanks to the doctors, the nurses, the physician assistants, all of those people who looked after me, and express my gratitude to my country and my pride, I guess, in the medical system we have here. Don't believe the horror stories you hear. No doubt some of them are real. This is the biggest city of Canada. I live right downtown. Maybe the situation is very, very different in rural Canada. I'm sure there are places that are very underserved. I seem to be blessed here. Okay.